Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Robert Stickle. I'm also joined by my colleague Jose Levy. Jose will be today's presenter and will discuss the topic of emerging trends in 2023 for strategic portfolio management leaders. This webinar is a new addition to our series of strategic portfolio management videos, so if you enjoy this webinar, feel free to watch the others we have available on our channel and look towards the next installment, which we'll be releasing soon. And as always, I hope that today's presentation grants you some insight into the world of project and portfolio management and gets you excited for the new developments happening within the industry and here at OnePlan. Thank you again. I'll now turn the presentation over to Jose.
Thank you, Robert, and thank you everyone for joining our first webinar of 2023. Our topic is emerging trends for strategic portfolio management leaders. So let's get right to it. So I'm going to do a quick intro on OnePlan Solutions, then we'll get into the presentation. We have enough time, I'll get into some of the capabilities that I'll be referencing through the presentation, and then we'll get into a summary and next steps. So for those of you that don't know us, OnePlan Solutions is a recognized leader and subject matter expert in project portfolio management. We have been focused on portfolio management for a number of years. Principals within this organization have been practitioners for the last 20 years in both technology, project portfolio management technology, and implementation of PMOs in multiple industries. With respect to our awards, you'll see there that we are multiple Partner of the Year winner within the Microsoft ecosystem, as well as recognized by other analysts. So the strategic planning assumptions that we want to cover were actually provided by Gartner in their 2023 Strategic Portfolio Leaders report that was out in November 2022. What we want to do here is evaluate them and see whether they actually make any sense in the context of what we do in the market in terms of portfolio management. Some of them are interesting. I think they're all relevant, and you'll be able to relate them to what's going on within your organizations. So the first one is adopting a human-centric change planning to ensure sustainable high performance. Now, it's a lot of fancy words, basically saying that organizations, people within organizations, and organizations as living systems have gone through a lot in recent years. COVID, economic downturn, all of the changes that have occurred, and we are change fatigued within organizations. So what this means is, as you're making changes, as you're investing, having initiatives, you have to really consider the change management impact within the organization. This is, in high performance economic times, is trying to do too many things at once. There's too much change in the organization, so we're going to have difficulty implementing all of that change. Here, it's really change fatigue and really organizational team members not willing to go along with the change. So what that means is we have to be more empathetic to our project team members when we're implementing major initiatives and really executing projects. You should include within the business case that human-centric change management component. In other words, what if we implement this? What is the impact on the organization from a change standpoint? And you should include it also within your resource capacity planning. That seems kind of obvious, but in a lot of cases, we look at resource capacity planning grids as numbers, and there's really people behind there. So we have to consider putting too many people through too many projects and what that's likely to do to performance. We happen to agree, and here we have evidence from our customers that leads us to believe that there is not a lot of change management taken into consideration when doing business cases. So I think given all of the constraints in the labor market and talent and resource pools, this is something that we want to bring to the forefront in order to, again, maintain high performance within our teams. So the second is, co-create talent management hubs to enable responsive resource management across portfolios. Again, a lot of nice, sophisticated words. Basically, because of the lack of people, talent within organizations, we're going to have to go back to shared pools. There's more dynamic resource allocations also based on all of these changes that are occurring in the market. Again, we lived it through COVID, but now it's we're in a softer economic outlook environment for this year, at least. So that means that we're going to have to do more with less, and we're going to have to learn how to maximize everyone within the organization. The concept of agile and hybrid delivery also comes into play. There are dedicated teams, but then people get pulled away from those dedicated teams. So capacity planning is difficult and complex in those environments. So, recommendation, have an integrated view of resources across business units for capacity planning. Now, that might seem obvious and simple, but it's a very difficult challenge when there are multiple business unit resource owners that don't want to share those resources. Their leadership is going to have to actually step in and facilitate that discussion. We will go back to more of a shared resource model rather than those dedicated teams, because we had to do more with less, and then focus on cross-silo talent and skills inventory. And that is par for the course for strategic portfolio management, because resource capacity planning across portfolios and programs is mainstay, is a capability that you should have already. And if you're not doing that well, it's going to become even more important. We happen to agree with this recommendation. We think that we have always recommended continuing to improve resource capacity planning. And as you can see, and you're probably going through it internally, it becomes even more of a required capability within your portfolio management process. The third one addresses investments in AI, and AI specifically for approving investments and initiatives. And that's driven by all the inroads of AI into the rest of the organization and the business. In some way, shape, or form, probably is being used within either applications or business units for core processes. So this particular recommendation addresses the need to accelerate approval of digital investments by the use of AI. So the recommendation is really to incorporate or look for tools that have the ability to integrate AI into project approval automation. And again, one plan does have the capability to have that integration, and in order to drive it, the issue, as I'll mention in a second, has to do more with the readiness of the organization to actually make use of such tools. But what you could be doing is understanding the data required for automation, the algorithms to optimize investments, the tooling that you might already have in place that you can leverage in order to do this. And then also understand the impact of having to redefine the governance model, because now you're going to have AI into project approval rather than a steering committee in some cases. So we happen to disagree with this one, and it has to do with what we see in the market with most organizations in managing demand. It's still, I would say, early in most organizations to perfect that whole process. And here, when I'm talking about demand managers, from the second someone in the organization actually requests a project, an enhancement, to the point that it actually makes it to a decision point with a stakeholder that has to decide whether to include or not include that within a portfolio. The other element is the amount of data that it would be required to drive the model for AI in this case. In the more successful examples, we're talking about optimizing a huge size of data, huge amounts of data. And when we're talking about perfecting modeling what would be project request, you would have to have a much larger size of request over a number of years in order to get to that level of machine learning and optimization. So I think this is nice to have. I'm not saying that it's not going to become an important component. I think it will eventually, but given other opportunity areas to improve strategic portfolio management, this one is that's still early in the game, I think, for you to consider. Again, if you're doing it extensively within the organization, this might be a nice strategic portfolio management, R&D, if you will, or an area to investigate if it is a requirement for you. So the next recommendation deals with ESG criteria affecting investments for 90% of global organizations. And it's fairly standard that ESG is now a required component for most public companies in particular. It's included within overall organizational governance at the board level. Also, employees are concerned. So your ability to attract top talent is impacted by your organization's ability to include ESG as part of your initiative criteria. So the recommendations, fairly standard, is to include the criteria as part of the portfolio selection and prioritization process, which it sounds simple, but you actually have to work at defining how that is going to impact how you evaluate projects. So that's one important area. The second is you should include, if you're not already doing so, ESG objectives as part of your strategic goals. So that gets to the top OKRs for the organization, the objectives and key results for the organization. If you're using OKRs or your top strategy, what you're trying to achieve should incorporate ESG objectives. And then finally, you're going to have to include it within your strategic portfolio management governance. So is there an ESG checkpoint that needs to be incorporated before actually approving projects or delivery? Sorry, I did not include it. ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance that you might want to include within your strategic portfolio management. For this one, we happen to agree. I mean, now, if you're a public company, investors are actually requiring it from you. There might be actually cost avoidance that you might have to take into consideration specifically for environmental issues of initiatives. So it's too important to neglect. So you have to consider that criteria within your portfolio selection and prioritization. And the final one deals with applying greater financial acumen to drive business outcomes, and really it addresses the people aspect of financial criteria and outcomes. In other words, we have to focus more on value realization, and that means that the strategic portfolio management office has to really communicate that and have the acumen, have the capability, the training in order to speak that language. So currently, within a portfolio management office, enterprise portfolio management office, there's governance, there's all the data required to make decisions, and it is reported and discussed in steering committees. But really, this is about having the language, the ability to speak the language of value realization. And so the recommendation is really to improve the ability to communicate business outcomes and financial impact within the overall SPM process, strategic portfolio management process. Improve the financial skills of SCM team members. This is sounds challenging, but it's really just being able to understand the concepts and being able to speak the language with all of the stakeholders, requesters of projects and customers, internal and external. And then finally, make sure that you're reflecting that within your strategic portfolio management solution. In other words, improve the portfolio analysis capabilities with focus on business value and optimal investment. So there is just making sure that you've incorporated that. If you have learned the language and you're going to train up, then we have to also reflect that within our SPM solution and SPM process and governance. For this one, we happen to agree. This is already taking place with more of a focus on business outcomes and value realization. It's just a matter of being more tuned to it as we get into scenarios where we have to make trade-offs between portfolios, given all the changes that are occurring, and really what's the financial impact of those decisions. So we like that one, and we agree that we can do a better job. Okay, so I'm going to try to walk you through a few of these. Before I do so, what I want to do is align to the capabilities that one plan has to support these recommendations. So, the first one dealing mostly with change management. You will have to address that within your requests. Have some criteria within your what we call plan details or your request form in order to gauge the impact, the change impact from an investment. Also, obviously, the resource planning and having to move people between initiatives, and the impact of change on them. And then you could be doing modeling for specific scenarios. If we have a high quarter where we're going to have a lot of change, can we actually, manage that given the capacity of resources that we have? How much, change will a specific, portfolio model cause within the organization? You could be incorporating that within, within the one plan modeler in order to have scenarios for that. The second recommendation, incorporate talent hubs. I mean, that one is just going deeper into resource capacity planning and the resource planner. Perhaps include more skills and criteria within your more definition of resources within the resource center. We've been able to do that, for customers that have, skill sets and other attributes to the resources themselves. And, also use that if you want within the modeler, again, like the prior recommendation, in order to see, what the scenarios are based on loads for specific teams or skill sets, roles in particular. The third one, investing in AI. This is the one that we disagreed with. One plan has insights already available that tell you the direction of, or tell you the status of specific actions that have been taken or not taken within the project portfolios. Obviously, all of this can be reported within Power BI, and Power BI itself has some AI capabilities. We do also have trending within one plan and analytic snapshots if needed. And then finally, if you want to go all the way in terms of building an entire solution, one plan integrates with Azure AI and all the Azure AI capabilities. We can do the same thing with AWS also, by the way, but we're more aligned to the Microsoft platform. So you could be developing an AI solution for project approval using one plan and any of the public clouds. The last two, use the same set of capabilities, really, including ESG criteria as part of your selection and prioritization. And here you're going to, use a one plan strategy in particular, because that's what houses, that's the area of the application, the solution that addresses objectives and key results. One plan portfolio, obviously, for doing your selection and prioritization, use ESG criteria. The financial planner specifically if you are going to be calculating the impact, the financial impact, both cost and benefits, cost avoidance of undertaking ESG initiatives, and then finally the modeler, again, if you want to actually build scenarios, what if scenarios assuming more or less of weighted portfolio for ESG. The last one, self-explanatory. I think we're going to have to include greater financial criteria within our all of our strategic portfolio management content and communicate that. So that means that again, that will be reflected in objectives and key results within strategy, the association of them to portfolio items within one plan portfolio, obviously the cost, but also benefits, because here we're talking about benefit realization, value realization, which you can do within Financial Planner. And then finally, likewise, you will look at the modeler and define scenarios based on those value realization outcomes. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is switch to the demonstration. So 1 second here. Okay, so I am showing one plan, and I think I'm going to switch it to the strategic portfolio management solution, just so that we are aligned with the recommendations that we showed. So I will deal first. The first one had to do with change management. So the areas that could support that. I mean, we are, by the way, for those that have never been in one plan, we are within one plan portfolio. It's one of the areas of the tool that give you specific content and features that you can manage for your strategic portfolio management process. There is a homepage, and I'll get to that one in a minute when we address insights. But this is the main, if you will, the main for portfolio manager and project manager, program managers is the main area that you're going to be working with. So we have what we would call a standard planning hierarchy of portfolio, program, and project. So you can see here that I have a planning hierarchy that deconstructs, breaks down into that portfolio, program, and project. On the right-hand side, I have my views within portfolio. My view areas are list, board, and roadmap. So we could be creating a view for prioritization, for instance, that deals with change management. So you could be including change management criteria within a prioritization view if you wanted to include that, which is our first one of these strategic alignment we have here. But one of them could be what's the change impact, and how would we rate that? Well, you would include that within your plan detail page for your projects, or your epics if you're doing agile. So here I'm at the work plan level, but if I go to details, we could be including criteria that addresses low, medium, high change impact of this initiative to the organization, and who is going to actually be impacted could also be defined here. So that is one way of accommodating that that requirement, that recommendation. Within the prioritization grid, if you wanted to include, risk reduction, maybe here is, change impact could be one of the drivers that actually impact your prioritization score, and then you can use that also within, when you're actually doing that selection. So that's one the primary area where you would address it. The other, there is the ability to also associate. You want to talk about change. This particular Spark Customer User Mobile is actually impacting key results, is impacting applications, is impacting products. So this is a fairly important initiative. And by the way, we could actually see within the visualizer, which is a way to see not only dependencies, but how does this impact everything else in the organization? And this particular initiative is very important. We saw the associations that had. Here's a visual representation of that from objectives. You don't have to build it this sophisticated, by the way, but from objectives and key results, the project, how it relates to the key results of the objectives backwards, and then forwards, how it impacts products, applications, capabilities, and so on. So in terms of being able to see change impact, that's two quick ways of addressing that. The next recommendation had to do with resource talent hubs. And here we have, I'm going to start within our global summary resource plan, which is part of the overall resource plan or capabilities within one plan. But you can see here that we have resource plans by business unit, by role, resource summary, resource requirements. So the point here is that you could be defining skill sets. Here we have roles, but we could include skill sets and other criteria in order to see where the over allocations are. It's as simple as that, and who is actually having the greatest impact of the allocations that they're going through. So here, I mean, you can get down to the project level, and if we use the what we call the scheduled resource plan, you can even get to the task level. So here, again, both from a change perspective and the concept of the talent hub, we could be looking at where are our greatest resource surplus deficits in order to not to overtax our teams. And like I said, I did it by business unit, but I could easily go to a role and then see within a particular group. You can see that the developers are, way over allocated, and there's some specific people that, unless we address them, they're going to burn out. So again, this concept of shared resources, shared talent pools, can be addressed by being able to define the load on specific people. Here we're talking about, again, our team members that are going through and getting overloaded. So that's the how we would use Resource Planet for that. In terms of our investment in AI, again, this particular environment doesn't have Azure infrastructure behind it, but we could, if we wanted to, in order to get some confidence factors, predictions of projects and approvals. One plan does have a request, an ideas area and request portal that you could be using, and if with workflow and additional capabilities, we could be getting into that approval, that automated approvals for investments that AI can deliver. So again, part of the solution is actually the ability to capture requests, and this could be obviously routed to to stakeholders in order for prioritization decisions to be made. In the life cycle of the project, in this case, we're talking about a proposed initiative, but you could be automating this with a workflow and with some AI capability in order to, automate some of these life cycle steps in order to then move it to, to the execution portfolio. Likewise, out of the box, we have insights that tell you what's going on within a specific project, and it could be a compliance insight in terms of giving you an indication whether something's being missed. And here we can get into the specific details of why, why I'm not meeting my my governance goals. Obviously, overdue task is the simplest one, which is have you completed the work? It might be that you have not reported it, but you actually do have to use one plan in order to report that. And you can see these can be tailored also. Notifications are also part of the solution, and those could be automated again. And with respect to the topic of automating investment approvals, that could also be part of those notifications. And what I wanted to do is, let's go back to portfolio, because as I showed earlier, we could be looking at a specific set of criteria within our plan details that could incorporate impact on ESG. So association to our objectives and key results, prioritization criteria, also business case criteria that we would need to include before any type of narrative that we would need to include on ESG impact could be included here. Goals, there's a specific goal that could be defined for ESG, you would include it here. Let me see, I think we have financials. The financials, within our financial tab, if we're talking about cost avoidance, for instance, that could be incorporated within our benefits definition. So if there's ESG, cost savings, if we're doing this based on ESG criteria, that could be incorporated there. We could also be associating the item directly, as I showed earlier, with our ESG OKRs. So we would do that. I'm going to jump to strategy, but we would have some ESG OKRs, and then we could associate this item to those ESG OKRs. So here, perhaps we have some new OKRs that have been created for ESG, and then there's some key results that we're trying to achieve. Transform corporate culture could have a KR for ESG, for instance, and then at this point, we're able to associate our key result to a specific initiative that we've defined within our portfolio. So that's another way of leveraging one plan strategy for OKRs related to ESG. And then I've mentioned modeler a couple of times. So we could have a scenario that is specifically for ESG. So that could give us the ability to define project portfolios that are addressing that have ESG criteria with them, and we can decide how to include them, exclude projects based on whether we want to meet or exceed our key results by those ESG strategies. So there is a matter of defining the criteria and the sets of projects that are going to allow us to achieve our ESG targets. The final recommendation, if you recall, had to do with our ability to speak more in financial terms. So obviously, if you've included those within, we could have program financial summary, portfolio summaries, project financial summaries. We'll go to project financial summaries, and then we'll go to reporting, because that also has some interesting insights. So here we're talking about being able to address value realization. So it's about budget and benefits, ROI or WSJF if you're using Agile, and being able to reflect that, being able to speak the language of benefit realization to see if we're going to be able to deliver on these benefits. And likewise, that means that we're going to use our financial planner tools within one plan in order to define those benefits and how the benefits are aligned to our objectives and key results. And here we can see, can we, as SPM leaders, speak to every one of these data points as our projects are being delivered, right? And then also, what is the the relationship of these benefits, to the overall OKRs of the organization. And again, as I showed in strategy, that's you would reflect that they're also. Let me go to. I will go to our portfolio reports because I think that also has. So we talked about our overall projects, but if we're talking about a portfolio summary, the roll up of all these projects into portfolios can also be summarized, and then and broken down into its components. Again, looking at budget, benefits, and I'm going to go to the portfolio dashboard to show some of the portfolio financial dimensions that we have in the reports that support the ability to speak the language. We can create the report and create the input, but this also has to do with the ability of the SPM, Strategic Portfolio Management team, to be able to communicate it and to speak the language. So remember that, because it's also important that the recommendation is not only our ability to capture, but ability to explain what all this means to stakeholders, especially in the context of changing priorities and changing scenarios for projects. So here we could be focusing on within portfolio in a specific portfolio. So I'll select Peel Younger. I'll select the first one. And you can see that now we're focusing strictly on that. And the summary of what we're doing, it's a new product development. You can see the spend here, spend pattern of the portfolio between budget, forecast, and actual. Can we actually explain the differences and why this is behaving? I think that's what the recommendation is making. And can we, focus on a goal? In this case, they're all growing the business. And can we explain why is this so high? What is driving that such high return from this particular portfolio? I'll go to Platinum Mobile first, and this one has a more moderate return, interesting set of benefits. Given the budget, 24 projects and epics, 3 different programs, and you can see that how the spend spikes here. We're going to be making most of our investment in this in the first quarter. Again, having the ability to speak in this language with stakeholders. All right, so I think that covers what I wanted to show within our feature set and capabilities to manage the recommendations. Again, I'll just put them up so that we're going to be impacting, trying to address more change management within our portfolio initiatives, better capacity planning by being more responsive to the needs of the organization, making sure that we have very well-defined capacity and understand where all of our teams are allocated across the portfolios. The AI, leveraging AI whenever possible. Again, it's a nice to have and maybe a secondary priority given everything that's going on within organizations. ESG criteria is a must, especially if you're a public company or an invested company. Make sure that you're aligning initiatives to it. And then finally, as value realization and business outcomes become more important, make sure that you incorporate that within your portfolio selection and prioritization. And we see here, again, the capabilities that support the capabilities from one plan that support those initiatives. Okay, these are all, again, I wanted to put this just to make sure that, these are all predictions. There should be inputs to your future planning. They identify course corrections in specific areas, of your strategic portfolio management process. And it's really a a way to be proactive rather than reactive. So so take them into account, because again, there's a term, mileage may vary, and this really depends on your local context within your organization, within your leadership teams, and what they see as priorities. You're all living very unique circumstances probably within your organization, some more common than others, but again, apply as needed as a strategic portfolio management leader. So if you have not tried OnePlan, we encourage you to do so. We have all of our solutions within AppSource. If you contact us directly, we can support setting it up for you very quickly. But if you want to do it on your own, you can go to AppSource directly and start any of the solutions that we have, and we have multiple templates that might fit your your specific scenario, from strategic portfolio management or all the way to project services automation. If you're interested in getting a roadmap discussion in terms of how you would actually go about implementing strategic portfolio management, we've done this, again, hundreds of customers, many years of defining the change journey that I spoke about earlier. Portfolio management, it is a multi-phased, never-ending in some perspectives approach, because you're always trying to improve one of the core capabilities, whether it's demand management or portfolio selection and prioritization, resource management, financial management, and you can always do better. So please make contact if you're interested in defining that improvement path. My information was provided here, but if not, please write to us at contact@oneplan.ai or at our website. And we look forward to having a discussion with you on how to improve strategic portfolio management in 2023 within your organization. Thank you very much, and look forward to hearing from you. And please be also on the lookout for our future webinars where we go more in depth into strategic portfolio management. Thank you.